Hello, everyone. Welcome to the greatest show on earth, otherwise known as the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Man. You're quiet today. That's kind of a shock coming from you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I will go ahead. You were finishing your thought.
I've just loved it. I love this show.
Yeah, that which is what I was about to say. That's very odd that the Dr. Quack Podcast got to do WrestleMania 19. This show was not horrible. But there's a lot of things about the WWE that are horrible. Maybe that's why you chose this show.
We got to have some good times here every once in a while.
Yeah, so this came from Safeco Field in Seattle. When he mentioned last time about the world's longest entrance ramp, yeah, they learned from WrestleMania 8. There's something that we've reviewed that you'll see later. There's a reason they changed directions, and that's because... You're right. Safeco Field, they put this thing at home plate, and they were coming out of center field. So there was a long, long way to go to get to the ring.
Yes, March 30th, 2003. The biggest thing about that for me was I was overseas. I did not get to watch this show until a month later on VHS.
And I was overseas as well. We were both in Iraq at this time. And I didn't mean to cut you off here, but this is the first time it is the WWE at WrestleMania. October 2002, the World Wildlife Fund won their lawsuit, and WWF had to change to WWE. There's also some other things, like this is the first time for a long time we're going to get Michael Cole and Taz. We're going to get the split up of the Raw and the SmackDown reviews.
Well, I'll let him do this part of the show. But anyways, yeah, Safeco Field, that's where we are. And on commentary, Michael Cole and Taz, your buddies. Yes. And Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler on Raw.
And Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, this is where they started really building their chemistry. Jerry Lawler started losing the joke book and started doing more sexualized puppy references, which actually made him better because once he got over puppies, he started to realize he didn't need to just tell jokes. So even though this part of the WWF, the ruthless aggression, aka exploitation of women era of WWE was here, it did make Jerry Lawler better.
Yes, and don't forget on Spanish commentary, Carlos Cabrera and Hugo Sanovich.
And when we get to later on, it just became Carlos Cabrera for a little while.
Yes, it did. Interviews, you had Jonathan Coachman and Josh Matthews.
And I don't remember seeing Josh Matthews on there. We've talked about Josh Matthews. He was an independent wrestler who was a decent talker. The WWF brought him in because he was 5'8", so they couldn't see him as a wrestler. He wasn't Rey Mysterio. He didn't have that kind of skill. So they made him a backstage guy, and someone John Layfield got to beat up a little bit later on.
Yeah, ring announcers, we had Howard Finkel and Tony Kimmel.
Yeah, Howard Finkel did Raw, and Tony Kimmel did SmackDown.
Not Kimmel, Chimmel.
No, it's Kimmel. He says Tony Kimmel, so I'm going to go with how he pronounces his name. And this is another thing that annoyed me for a little while. At least they fixed this and solved this. At this time, SmackDown is right there at ringside. Raw is way back here. They did that for a while. I don't know why. Have one or the other. I don't care which. Just choose a side and stick with it.
Yes, because at this time you had Eric Bischoff out there running Raw, so there were some changes on that.
Yeah, Bischoff always hated the ringside commentary guy. He felt that was an unnecessary thing. He also felt that it was too obvious that they were going to be there to land on the table. He took that away. And like I said, just choose one or the other. If you're going to have two different shows, at least have the same commentary feel.
And here's the laundry list of referees. Charles Robinson, Nick Patrick, Jack Doan, Earl Hebner, Chad Patton, Mike Chioda, Jim Corderas, Brian Hebner, and Mike Sparks.
And we're 2 for 2 on Wikipedia getting it right.
Yay!
Good job, Wikipedia.
All right. Moving on to the opening match, Matt Hardy with Shannon Moore taking on Rey Mysterio for the Cruiserweight title.
This was version 1 of Matt Hardy, and it... I liked Matt Hardy. I didn't like version 1. I thought it was Vince McMahon trying to grow in the 21st century. Go, hey, I know what a video game is. It didn't work. I didn't like it. It really pigeonholed Matt Hardy. It made him feel like a video game. All he knew how to do was signature moves. And I wasn't a big fan of it. But I liked this match. There was a lot of good action, a lot of good storytelling. This was a great opening of the show. I went 2 3/4 with Matt Hardy retaining his title.
Yeah, I went 2.5. I felt it was solid, good opener. You know, WrestleMania usually has good to great openers. This was good. It wasn't A+. It was just good enough to where, okay, this is where you're going to start with WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, and then we get the first of our 2 segments, because I know you don't write them down.
Yeah, thank God.
We get introduced to something that existed in 2002, 2003, 2004. Miller Lite decided to have, instead of the athletes, and they hadn't come out with the Real Men of Genius commercials yet, we get the Miller Lite Catfight Girls, who are Tanya Bollinger and Katana Baker.
I think you had that right the first time.
What?
Never mind. You'll catch it on the replay. But yes, yeah, Miller Lite Cat Girls out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're out there talking about who's going to win the main event or who's going to win between Rock and Stone Cold. And then we get introduced to our musical introduction of the night because we're rolling. We get Limp Bizkit. Go ahead. I know nothing about them except I don't like Fred Durst. I don't want to see him on my screen.
I mean, Fred Durst was awesome. Look, not only did he do Undertaker's songs, he was in the wrestling games. He was in, I believe, Here Comes the Pain. He was in there as a special character. I mean, he made great music. I mean, it was awesome.
His music may be okay. I look at his face and I want to punch it repeatedly. Well, that's why I threw it to you to let you have your discussions about Limp Bizkit.
Because, of course, when you have Fred Durst, you got to have The Undertaker. And our next match was The Undertaker in a handicap match taking on the Big Show and A-Train.
Yeah, to go into the backstory about this a little bit.
He loved this show.
I actually did. This show was not horrible.
It was not.
Nathan Jones is a 6'10" bodybuilder from Australia who they brought into the WWF without realizing he has an extensive criminal record. They originally wanted to use him as a Hannibal Lecter type character, and then they realized he couldn't talk. So then they tried to make him a wrestler and realized he couldn't wrestle either. So they made him get beat up in the backstage by the FBI, the full-blooded Italians, and then just come down at the end because the next day he was on his way to Ohio Valley to work on his wrestling skills. That's the reason this was basically a handicap match. And Undertaker did a good job. A-Train, also known as Prince Albert, also known as Lord Tensai, also known as one of the better trainers after Bill DeMott left at the NXT Power Plant. Yes, I'm going to call it the NXT Power Plant. And Big Show, this match was actually decent. I really enjoyed this. A lot of good storytelling, keeping the Undertaker's story rolling, of having to take on big monsters because SmackDown wanted to see him become the biggest monster of all. Kane wasn't available at this time. I went 2 3/4. It was not a bad match.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'll go with that, 2 3/4. I mean, if you're looking at Undertaker matches at Mania, this was not near the top of it, but it was done technically sound. It worked well, like you said, with the story.
Yeah, it wasn't King Kong Bundy. It wasn't Giant Gonzalez, but A-Train is a competent worker. Big Show's a competent worker, and they worked well with Undertaker here.
Definitely. Moving along here, we had the women's title. We had Victoria with Steven Richards, Jazz, and Trish Stratus all in a triple threat match.
Yeah, this is my low match of the night besides what I know he's going to give the 2 finger salute. Yes, this was my low match of the night at 2.5 stars.
Wow.
Now, again, at this time, they had just become the WWE. Some fan held up a sign that says WWF forever, and it was blurred out. The only reason I didn't like this match as much as I wanted to, there was too little of selling. The crowd, they lost the crowd for half this match because they just kept doing action. Nothing ever stopped. There was no reason to care about what was going on. That's why I went 2.5 stars. The action was very good, but they lost the crowd, and only at the very end did they get them back.
Yeah, I felt they did a decent job on it. I actually gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed the match for what it was there. Yeah, the selling, not so much. But it was a great story from, the 3 of them being able to work in the ring together. If you watched a few months prior from the Royal Rumble forward, where you had Trish and Lita and Jazz just being the big threat that she was, as champion, finally dropping the title, and Trish Stratus ended up winning this. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing we've always said. We rate how the crowd reaction is as well. And it was a 3-star match, but they lost the crowd. That's why I had to go 2.5.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Moving along.
To the milieu of the WWF, a multi-man tag team title match.
Go ahead.
Because you just pointed that out last time. So, yeah, we got another one here. At least this was only a triple threat. We only got 3 teams this time instead of 4, 5, 6, or 10.
What do you mean?
Eddie and Chavo Guerrero taking on Benoit and Rhino, and Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. At this time, Team Angle. They're not the world's greatest tag team yet.
Yeah, this triple threat tag team match was about the standard at WrestleMania. It's what you got to have 3 teams or 4 teams. Doesn't matter. It's the same kind of spots you expect in these kind of matches. I felt like it was par for the course. I went 2.5. I just really did not get into this match. And, it had Benoit in it, but it really didn't make me go, oh my God, this was great.
Yeah, I went 2 3/4, basically for the same reason you said. The only reason was the finish wasn't a traditional... It was a traditional, everybody just hit your finishers, and then the only difference is they actually did it nicely. They didn't just do it to do it. They did it with something that made sense, and they also lost the crowd, but they got them back much quicker than the women did, so I gave them a little bit higher, 2 3/4. Chavo Guerrero was pinned by Shelton Benjamin, and Team Angle retained their tag team titles.
Yeah, moving along here, we had Shawn Michaels take on Chris Jericho, and this was a big dream match for a lot of people, especially, late 90s going into early 2000s, because they were in separate feds. One was in WCW, one was in the WWF. I mean, this match here really lived up to it. Yes, the ending, we'll talk about that, but the match itself I felt was grade A. That was probably one of the best matches I've seen both of them work. I actually went 3 3/4 stars. I couldn't go 4 because of that ending. I felt like that kind of screwed things up.
The crowd got the good pop from the crowd for the ending. I only went 3 on this one. Shawn Michaels, I think, kind of got a little bit out of his game on this one. As he was coming to ringside, they had the confetti guns out there, and 2 of the 5 didn't even work. And you could tell Shawn Michaels was frustrated from the get-go. He walked in, and you could read his lips, and it was old 90s drug-fueled Shawn Michaels of he had to get himself under control because he was pissed off. And I think that really hurt this match. They started out way too fast. They were doing too much, and then when they finally got themselves under control, it made this match feel like it was too long, and I felt this match went longer than it should have, mostly because of how fast the first half of this match went. That's why I only went 3 stars.
That makes sense. But now I'm going to go to my 2-finger salute, because this right here, look, we get it. This was the Ruthless Aggression era. This was about almost female exploitation. I'm just going to call it the way it was. A lot of women that could work were treated like they were just call girls, basically. But yes, this right here, the Miller Lite cat fight, pillow fight match, whatever you want to call it, just pretty much 2 girls out there scantily clad, hitting each other with pillows, and then Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson come out here, and I'm just like, okay, so now it is bad when Stacy Keibler is the most talented person out of the 4 in this match. Yes, and Jonathan Coachman, yeah, whatever. Yeah. 2-finger salute!
Well, I'm gonna agree on that, and I'm gonna spray it, but for a different reason.
Go ahead, man. By all means.
We got to see Jonathan Coachman in his tidy whities.
Yes, and that's why I didn't want to mention it. I didn't want to gross out the fans.
So this all got set up because the catfight girls, they were talking to Stacy Keibler about her great marketing of testicles. And all the juvenile jokes about how great a package testicles was. I mean, that kind of stuff all night. Everything women related, to include King and JR, watching the triple threat match, talking more about the women's beauty than their wrestling match. That was the milieu of the WWF. Sex sells, and they pushed it like 14-year-olds.
Yes, one of the big highlight reels for Tori Wilson going into the Hall of Fame. Good job working on the Miller Lite cat fight. Yes. Moving along here.
Yeah,
please.
the only reason that I wanted to say yes, Stacy Keibler does deserve, because she's the one, her and Tori Wilson got to roll over the coach, and then the coach got pinned even though he wasn't part of the match. Thank God we're moving on. Please do that.
Yes, Triple H defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Booker T with Ric Flair in the corner.
Yeah, at this time, the WWF, there was a lot of things about the Ruthless Aggression era that the WWF and WWE had to work through. One of them was multitudes of injuries from the Ruthless Aggression era, or from the Attitude Era, with a lot of things like the Vertebreaker and Super Drop Power Bombs. There were a lot of people with neck injuries. Benoit and Rhino just got back from a year of neck injuries. Kurt Angle was about to go out because of neck injuries. Hurricane was out because of neck injuries. A lot of people, a lot of wrestlers, big names. Mike Awesome was out at this time because of a neck injury. So a lot of people, they had to kind of work with what they had. They also had to figure out what they had, because this is the first full year they've got, or second year, they've got WW or WCW mixed in. Plus now they're not WWF, they're WWE. So they're trying to build new stars. But they did that by bringing up Booker T's criminal record, which, yes, he does have a criminal record. Yes, he was arrested and spent time in prison for theft. Let's move on. This match was decent, but it wasn't good. For purist people who study wrestling, this match was okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great.
You could see why they did not want to put this as the main event.
Yes. You could feel that, yeah, Triple H didn't feel sharp on this one. Another one, they lost the crowd. It went long again because the story didn't mesh together, so it felt long.
And I felt like this was one of those where Triple H said, I don't want to look bad here. You know, when you're married there to the boss's daughter, I mean, that kind of helps you there.
Yeah,
so
but they weren't married at this time.
Right. They were together, and
yes.
Sure, Vince is going to look out for, him.
Yeah. And this one, Booker T, they were trying to build a star from WCW. They had already gotten rid of Mike Awesome. He was injured and on his way out the door. They already got rid of Steiner Math. So they were trying to do something with Booker T, and they kept telling Booker T, do all your signature stuff, just don't do a spin-a-rooney. I don't know why, but they told him not to do a spin-a-rooney. And this match, Booker T and Triple H just didn't have a lot to bring to the table. Luckily, Booker T fixed it, and they put the King on him, and he became a Hall of Famer, two-time Hall of Famer because of it.
Yeah. He got really sandbagged in this match.
But this one, yeah, he got a little sandbagged, and I think even King and JR were kind of told, don't oversell him.
Right. It was like they were trying to set him up to fail, but he said, screw you, I'm going to succeed anyways. And that's how you do it in the business. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
There you go.
But moving along here, yeah, we got Hulk Hogan taking on Vince McMahon in a street fight. If Hulk Hogan lost, he would have to retire.
Yeah, the backstory, we reviewed this on our Best of Vince McMahon. Now we get to see it in context of WrestleMania. A month before, Hulk Hogan had signed a new contract, signed the Legends contract, and it was big money, but the story was meh until they did the contract signing. It was really weak until the contract signing. Yes. And I think that was Vince McMahon going, we need to step this thing up. This one had Brian Hebner refereeing. Then we got Mike Sparks and Sylvain Grenier come running out there. We had a Roddy Piper sighting, hence why we talked about we didn't want to have another Papa Shango come crawling down to the ring, because Roddy Piper was 4 years after his hip surgery. He didn't run much anymore. This match was, as we said on the review of McMahon, a spectacle. It was awesome to watch. It was a great show, great storytelling. Hulk Hogan did a great job of pulling very interesting stuff out of McMahon. Vince McMahon is a natural showman to begin with. I went 3 3/4 in the feel of this. I think I only went 3.5 on the McMahon review, but in the totality of WrestleMania, I could bump it up in 3 3/4. It was a great break after the kind of the bad taste in the mouth of Triple H and Booker T.
Yeah, it was a great thing to see after that match. I'll go with. I'll bump you to 3 3/4. Why not? We both did say 3.5.
And this is where Hugo Savinovich got hit by a chair and bled, and they carried him out, and he was gone for the rest of the show. Now, this was partially because of storyline of they wanted to have something else besides Shawn Michaels kicking the timekeeper. But at the same time, Hugo Savinovich, he was kind of not feeling great, so he didn't want to work a lot of it, so he agreed to take the chair shot. He actually needed hip and knee surgery a couple of weeks after this, so it's understandable.
Yeah, moving along here. The Rock taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that gets my quack attack. Because that match there, any one of the three you want to point out when you were talking about 17, or this one here, you know, this match, The Rock ends up going over. I loved it because it was the third and final chapter. These guys really told their story. These guys were hitting each other with each other's finishers. Rock had on the Stone Cold vest. I mean, this was back and forth, and it went over clean. That's why I was really excited about this match. I gave it 4.5 stars. This whole trilogy you could put at least at 4.5 stars in my opinion.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, you're about to quack attack it. Give it to it. It deserves it. It deserves it.
It does.
So, yeah, what they're talking about is this is a 3-part trilogy of The Rock versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania. They've worked a lot more times, a lot other matches, and they've switched the titles back and forth, but this was WrestleMania. WrestleMania 16, 17, Stone Cold Steve Austin beat The Rock twice. Now they get it at 19. Mm-hmm. And this was Puroresu at its finest, and I mean that in a good way. Puroresu matches, especially All Japan, they don't have finishing moves like stunners and rock bottoms. Those are signature moves that you hit people with, and they can kick out of them, and then you finish it with like a big strike at the end, or you hit them multiple times with your finisher. And that happened here. We got 3 rock bottoms to finish off Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this was great storytelling, excellent work. The ring announcers put this over perfectly. I went 4, but I'm bumping up to 4.5 with you. I do have to agree that while this one itself was 4, all 3 of them combined make it 4.5, and they told all 3 of those stories at the same time. That's excellent storytelling. Great job. Quack attack it again. Give it to him again.
Let's move on to the main event, shall we?
Well, it's a main event.
Oh, I loved it. Brock Lesnar taking on Kurt Angle. If Kurt Angle got counted out or disqualified, he automatically lost the title because he had been being a cowardly heel for the last few months, which I definitely enjoyed. Yes. That was the great part of it. But this match here, I enjoyed it for the most part, the great technical of it. The biggest problem, which everybody always talks about, is Brock Lesnar attempting the shooting star press.
Yeah, the ostrich press, as it's jokingly called. Now, in OVW, Brock Lesnar could do shooting star presses, and he did them multiple times. The problem was he didn't tell Kurt Angle to roll in as he should have. So when he jumped himself out there, he tried to jump as hard as he could to get the flip out there, and he didn't make the distance.
Yeah, and he landed right on his neck, and that looked painful as hell. But he got up, and what did he do? Hit an F5. This is why you work out your neck, folks. Trust me.
Yeah, because the shooting star was actually supposed to be the finish.
Yes.
So luckily, Angle and Lesnar, who worked together in Ohio Valley, and their natural skills worked well together. I like that they did it. They opened this with wrestling because both of these guys were known for their amateur freestyle wrestling, and they really built interest in that. They didn't do too much pro wrestling stuff. They kept a lot of it amateur, and I really liked that. Unfortunately, I only went 3.5 stars, and the reason I went 3.5 stars is because after The Rock and Stone Cold, there was nothing anybody was going to do to beat this match, and at times I almost felt like they tried too hard. They were backstage watching The Rock and Stone Cold and went, shit, we have to follow that.
Yeah, and that happens in this business. I went 4 stars on it because I felt like it was a really strong main event. I'm glad they didn't put Triple H and Booker T in the main event. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I can see why you went 4. My only big thing, like I said, is that I felt they tried too hard because they had something to go for. Instead of just doing their match, they felt they had to do something bigger, and it didn't work in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, there we go, folks. That is the end of WrestleMania 19. We're going to continue our conquest here on WrestleMania until April 1st and April 2nd, where we'll be talking about this year's WrestleMania. But we're going to WrestleMania 21.
Yeah, this is the last time that WWF was in Los Angeles. They were supposed to be there for 35 or 36, and because of the pandemic, that didn't happen. So now they're going back, and I'm not feeling the play of storyline movies to put over stuff, so I hope the show is better than the vignettes they're doing to get us there.
It's not my fault. I'm Dr. Quack.
And I'm the baby punter. We'll see you at 21.